Hello everyone, GoldenNova here. It's time to wrap up Patron week with a request from the holder of the Quasar Commander Tier. If you want to look into how you can decide what videos I make, be sure to check out my Patreon, where you can cast a vote for next month's video. We've also got a few patron milestones, which you can help us reach. This month, the Quasar Commander selected a rather enigmatic archetype, so now it's time to cover the mysterious artifacts that should not be the Chronomalies. Premiering in the 2012 core set Return of the Duelist, this grouping of chronologically anomalous items was wielded by Trey, the sweetest of the Arclight siblings. But don't let those impossibly bright eyes fool you. Give Trey an inch, and he'll take away every single one of your life points with the power of the ancient world. So let's catalog these artifacts, decipher their runes to see what makes them tick, then see what other secrets from ages long past can accentuate them. It's time to chronicle Chronomaly. But before we continue, I wanted to let you all know I'll be lending my voice to the Dragon Rider Championship Series 5 tournament on January 8th and 9th. I'll be providing color commentary alongside the host, YCS Extraordinaire, and Grand Maju Master, Yishan McNabb, along with other guests over the course of the event. For more details, check out Dragon Rider Games links in the description, because if you join in, there's the chance I'll pog out over your gameplay live. And while you're supporting Dragon Rider Games, you can also support me by clicking the like and subscribe buttons and joining my Discord. Just make sure you know what your favorite pasta is before joining. It's a kind of an important question. Thank you all so much for watching, and now, back to the video. So what's the deal with Chronomaly? Well, they're a series of monsters that are either Earth or Light attribute, as well as Rock or Machine type, as well as a Psychic being thrown in there because, well, aliens. Mechanically, they're an Xyz archetype, and our more useful, focused cards care about manipulating attack stats and punishing our opponent for having ones different from their original ones, whether they be higher or lower. Thematically, all of them reference out-of-place artifacts, or UParts for short. These are artifacts found in places where it doesn't make sense for them to show up when applying conventional historical knowledge. Now, I want to be very clear here. A lot of these items get thrown around as proof of conspiracies or deep hidden truths about the world that scientists want to keep hidden, and while that narrative is exciting, there generally is some explanation to them, whether it's because we learn new things about that civilization that haven't make sense, or it's a hoax. However, this is a low-budget YouTube channel that has to write these kinds of scripts every few days. I won't have the ability to do deep dive research on all of these, but I will do my best to reference what they're based on so you can look them up later and enjoy some anthropological delights. As usual, we'll start with our main deck monsters, but we're actually going to split them up into two categories. One focused on providing general utility, and one that's focused on the Xyz summoning aspect. Some monsters do both, and I'll be sorting them into one category or another based on personal evaluation on which one it helps more. We'll begin with the utility monsters, so let's start things off with Chronomaly Colossal Head, a level 4 Earth Rock monster with 800 attack and 1600 defense, and is based off the Colossal Head sculptures made by members of the Olmec civilization hailing from Mesoamerica, which gives me big Legends of the Hidden Temple vibes. You can banish them from your grave to target a level 3 or higher attack position monster your opponent controls, and change it to either face up or face down defense position. So you've got a Book of Moon that lives in your grave. Sure, it's not at quick effect speed and can't affect Xyz or Link monsters, but for just about everything else, you can turn their effects off and make them more vulnerable to attacks. Or leave them face up if it's a monster that's causing your opponent some level of distress for whatever reason. The choices are yours and yours alone! Next we have Chronomaly Crystal Skull, a level 3 light rock monster with 900 attack and 600 defense, and is based on, well, crystal skulls. Objects that were initially believed to have been artifacts made by some pre-Columbian Mesoamerican culture, but future investigations found that this wasn't the case, and were actually manufactured in mid-19th century Europe in response to a spike in interest in ancient cultures. Imperialists were so keen on commodifying other people's cultures that they just started making stuff up. But hey, who's surprised about that? Anyway, in Yu-Gi-Oh, you can discard it if you control a Chronomaly monster to add any Chronomaly monster from your deck to your hand, which is pretty nutty considering the amount of extenders and utility cards we can grab with them, so it makes for an excellent piece of support, provided you have a good head on your shoulders. Chronomaly Mayan Machine is a level 3 Earth Machine monster with 1500 attack and 700 defense, and is purportedly based on this pendant excavated from Sitio Conte, an archaeological site in Panama. It can be treated as 2 tributes for the tribute summon of a machine monster, but That's not exactly helpful on theme, because Chronomalies don't have any machines that need 2 or more tributes. This is more useful in ancient gears than Chronomalies, which I guess makes Mind Machine an out-of-place card, or OOP card for short. Chronomaly Cabrera Trebuchet is a level 4 Earthrock monster with 0 attack and 1800 defense, and is a reference to the Peruvian Ica stones, objects that depicted dinosaurs and advanced technology that were discovered to have been a hoax. Once per turn, the Trebuchet can tribute another Chronomaly monster, then target a face-up monster your opponent controls and make its attack 0 until the end phase. This helps set up a really strong OTK in the deck, but the job is actually done better by other cards that don't need you to tribute a monster. So when it comes to catapults, I'll just stick with turtles, thank you very much. Chronomaly Magella Globe is a level 4 light machine monster with 1500 attack and 300 defense, and finding information on this one was difficult. The name seems to suggest it's tied to Ferdinand Magellan, a Portuguese explorer that was part of, though didn't finish, the first circumnavigation of the Earth due to the fact that he, died. But the Wikipedia article points to an item called Prince Shotoku's Globe, which does bear a resemblance to the card, but any information I could find wasn't put together in a way I could meaningfully decipher. What we do know is that you can tribute this card to special summon any Chronomaly monster from your deck, and if in the grave, except the turn it was sent to the grave, you can banish a Chronomaly card in your grave to add it back to your hand. So once you get the loop going, you could summon any Chronomaly that you could ever want, doing this archetype a world of good. Chronomaly Mud Golem is a level 4 Earthrock monster with 1700 attack and 1000 defense, and is based on Dogu, a kind of ancient Japanese figurine. Specifically, the Shikoki Dogu, which have been presented as evidence of the existence of extraterrestrial astronauts because they look kind of like spacesuits, though nothing has ever been substantiated. While on the field, all your Chronomaly monsters deal piercing battle damage, making it so your opponent can't hide in defense position after your boss monsters get swole, which is pretty out of this world. Nebradisk is a level 4 light machine monster with 1800 attack and 1500 defense, and is based off the Nebra Sky Disk, an artifact found in Germany that's dated around the Bronze or Iron Age. It has been confirmed to be a genuine artifact, and while it's largely believed to be a tool used by ancient Europeans for astronomical purposes, there's not a complete consensus. When normal summoned, Nebradisk adds a Chronomaly card, so monster, spell, or trap, from your deck to your hand, except another copy of itself. And if in the grave and all monsters you control are Chronomalies, you can special summon Nebradisk from your grave in defense position. But you can't activate cards or effects the entire turn you use this effect except Chronomaly ones, and you can only use one effect per turn and only once per turn. It's nice to have a Stratos for the deck, but considering how much you're probably going to be using off-theme effects to bolster your strategy, reviving it might be a rare occasion. But in a simplified game state where you might not be activating a lot of effects, it's certainly a very useful one to circle back to. Alright, let's move on to the Xyz focused cards. Chronomaly Crystal Bones is a level 3 light rock monster with 1300 attack and 400 defense, and might just be a further reference to the Crystal Skulls, though could also be based on the much more real Crystal Maiden, found in the cave of the Crystal Sepulchre in Belize. It's a skeleton that's been calcified over time, giving it a crystallized appearance. You can special summon them from your hand if your opponent controls a monster and you control no monsters, and when you do that, you trigger another effect that lets you special summon another Chronomaly monster from your hand or grave. And if that monster was level 3, then you just got yourself a free rank 3. Though this is modern Yu-Gi-Oh!, which means you much more likely got a free link too. Unless, of course, you're locked into only Chronomaly cards, which would make that option completely boned. Chronomaly Gordian Knot is a level 3 Earth Rock monster with 300 attack and 900 defense, which actually isn't an artifact at all, at least not a surviving one. The story is that the Gordian Knot was one that was impossibly tangled up, and an oracle declared that anyone who could untie the knot would be ruler of all of Asia. Alexander the Great came along, gave it a shot, had some trouble, and then decided the only thing that mattered to the prophecy was that the knot be undone, so he cut the damn thing in two, thus creating an example for D&D parties that would last for centuries, encouraging them to solve problems in unconventional ways, even if it doesn't quite adhere to the spirit of things. In Yu-Gi-Oh!, Gordian Knot is a bit of a problem solver itself, special summoning a Chronomaly monster from your hand when normal summoned, then taking on the current level of the summoned monster, making for an instant Xyz summon to pair with whatever Chronomaly you already have in hand, which really helps tie the theme together. Chronomaly Aztec Mask Golem is a level 4 Earth Rock monster with 1500 attack and 1000 defense, and as the name implies, is based on Aztec ceremonial masks. And during your turn, if you have activated a Chronomaly spell card previously that turn, you can special summon it from your hand. And while you can do that as many times per turn as you want, you can only control one Aztec Mask Golem. Our spell selection is actually pretty sparse in this theme, so its usage is pretty situational. But since we have cards like Nebradisk that can search it out, it makes for a nice one-of to get a free monster on board in case the conditions are met, especially since it doesn't impose any restrictions of its own, making it a nifty monster to help reach your golems. Chronomaly Golden Jet is a level 4 light machine monster with 1300 attack and 1400 defense, and is based on a number of statues created by the Quimbaya, a pre-Columbian civilization that ancient astronaut theorists point to as proof of spacecrafts from extraterrestrial visitors. Once per turn, Golden Jet can increase the level of all Chronomaly monsters you control by 1, thus helping you access Xyz monsters 1 rank higher than you'd normally have access to. It's also another effect that doesn't impose a restriction, so it's not only helpful for getting into on-theme monsters, but also gives you access to cards like Cyber Dragon Nova up through infinity. This is actually really fun with Nebradisk, because while you can't activate anything but Chronomaly effects that turn, it doesn't lock you into only summoning Chronomaly monsters. It's that kind of enabling, and a wonderful aesthetic, that gives this monster the GoldenNova gold medal. Chronomaly Tuspa Rocket is a level 4 Earth Rock monster with 1000 attack and defense, that's based off the Istanbul Rocket, an object that supposedly depicts an ancient space module from 3,000 years ago that was likely made no more than 40 years ago. When normal or special summoned, you can send a Chronomaly monster from your deck or extra deck to the grave, then target a face-up monster on the field, and it loses attack equal to the level or rank of the sent monster times 200 until the end of the turn, which can provide a debuff ranging from 600 to 1400, which certainly isn't nothing. And a number Xyz monster that uses Tuspa Rocket on the field as material gains an effect that grants it 2 attacks on monsters during each battle phase. So with this, you can set up Magella Globe, or just make a monster small enough to run over. And while its double attack is only for number Xyz monsters, we actually have a couple of those on theme to work with, one of which makes great use of it so you can really shoot for the stars. Chronomaly Akambaro figures is a level 5 Earth Rock monster with 1000 attack and 1800 defense, and are based on a series of over 30,000 small ceramic figurines found in the Mexican city of Acambaro that resemble dinosaurs, that creationists use as proof that humans and dinosaurs coexisted, but no scientific study has ever proven their validity. If any number of Chronomaly monsters you control would be destroyed by battle or your opponent's card effect, you can discard this card instead. And if in your grave, you can pay 1000 life points to special summon it, but return it to the hand during the end phase. You also can't special summon monsters the turn you activate this effect, except Chronomaly monsters, thereby sealing the loophole left behind by Nebradisk. This is a pretty nifty card, helping to ensure your monsters stick around, as well as being another great card we can send to the grave with Tuspa Rocket, but because it's a modern card, it's got one of those gosh darn summon restrictions which keep it from reaching its full potential, which, you know, figures. These next two are actually very closely related. Chronomaly Moai is a level 5 Earth Rock monster with 1800 attack and 1600 defense, and is based on the Moai statues of Easter Island in eastern Polynesia. They serve a number of political and religious purposes, but the reason they're regarded as out-of-place artifacts is that moving them would be impossible for the level of technology the Polynesians had, implying some extraterrestrial assistance. Or, you know, you could just wiggle them. If you control a face-up Chronomaly monster, you can special summon Moai from your hand in defense position. Conversely, Chronomaly Moai Carrier, a level 5 Earth Rock monster with 900 attack and 1800 defense, can be special summoned from your hand if your opponent controls a card and you control no cards. This version looks like it's showing off the more sci-fi theory involving the Moai statues. Both are suited for summoning more Chronomalies, especially to help with your rank 5 plays, and they also continue Konami's long-standing tradition of using Moai statues in their games. We've got a few more examples of them in Yu-Gi-Oh! Right here, but more importantly, they show up in another Konami franchise, Gradius, a sci-fi space shoot-'em-up. I don't have a joke here, I think the imagery speaks for itself. Chronomaly Tula Guardian is a level 5 Earth Rock monster with 1800 attack and 900 defense, and are statues depicting Toltec warriors that are in this theme because of another ancient astronaut theory. Seriously, are we gonna need to make like a counter gag for this? You can special summon them from your hand if a face-up field spell card is on the field, and you can only control one Tula Guardian, though like Mask Golem, you can special summon them this way as many times as you want in a turn. This is meant to synergize with the deck's field spell, though considering how broad it is, it can be used as a free summon in any deck that runs a field spell, giving you more link material or level 5 access for Xyz and Synchro plays. But something I find funny is that its name in the card game comes from a location it's found in, Tula. What they're known as are Atlantean figures, and now all I want is a retrain of this that works with that archetype. Chronomaly, Winged Sphinx, is a level 5 Earth Rock monster with 1600 attack and 1900 defense, which has its own series of ancient astronaut theories associated with it. When normal summoned, which usually means tribute summoned, you can target a level 5 Chronomaly monster in your grave and special summon it, but you can't special summon monsters the turn you activate this effect, except Chronomaly monsters. Yeah, I gotta take a pass on this one. We've got a lot more impactful normal summons you could be doing, so unless we get something that lets you normal summon them without needing a tribute, I don't sphinx this is gonna work out. Chronomaly Soul Monolith is a level 6 Earth Rock monster with 600 attack and defense, and is based on the Aztec Calendar Stone. And if I never have to hear a fake archaeologist say that another Mesoamerican calendar is predicting the imminent end of the world, it'll have been too soon. Once per turn, it can target a Chronomaly monster you control and change its level to 6, but you can't special summon anything but Chronomalies the turn you activate this effect, which super bites because there's only one Chronomaly you can make with those levels, and it would have been really cool to have Beatrice access. But make that rank 6 with Tuspa Rocket, and you could be closing out games with a truly monolithic monster. Okay, that's all the main deck monsters, on to the extra deck, starting with Chronomaly Crystal Chrononaut. They're a rank 3 Light Psychic Xyz monster with 2100 attack and 1000 defense, requiring any 2 level 3 monsters. Once per turn, when targeted for an attack, you can detach a material to prevent Crystal Chrononaut from being destroyed by battle or card effect that turn, and any battle damage you would have taken from battles involving Chrononaut is inflicted on your opponent instead. Now, if this triggered when being targeted by a card effect as well, this'd be pretty neat. But since it's only on attack, any competent modern deck can deal with it before battle even happens, which makes its name more appropriate now than it's ever been because it's a monster from a bygone era. Number 36, Chronomaly Chateau Hayuk is a rank 4 Light Machine Xyz monster with 2000 attack and 2500 defense, requiring 2 level 4 Chronomaly monsters as material. This monster is based on Chateau Hayuk, the largest and best preserved Neolithic site found to date. Once per turn, as a quick effect, you can detach a material, then target a face-up monster your opponent controls, and change its attack to 0 until the end of the turn. They can also tribute a Chronomaly monster, then target a monster your opponent controls whose current attack is different than its original attack, and destroy that target. As long as an opponent's monster can be targeted, Hayuk can beat it in battle by taking away all of its attack points during the damage step. But even if it runs out of material, it'll still have a nice defense stat to fall back on. It's also integral to completing our OTK, since it can so easily zero out that attack, which means this card is quite literally a house. Chronomaly Vimana is a rank 5 Light Machine Xyz monster with 2300 attack and 2600 defense, requiring 2 level 5 monsters as material. This monster is based on the Vimanas of Hindu texts, which were giant flying cities. Once per turn, as a quick effect, Vimana can target a face-up monster on the field and an Xyz monster or Chronomaly monster in your grave. On resolution, the monster on the field you target gains attack equal to half the attack of the monster you targeted in grave until the end of the turn. Then you can attach the grave monster to Vimana as material. And once per turn, when your opponent activates a monster effect as a quick effect, you can detach 2 material to negate the activation. Oh my goodness, they actually gave a legacy archetype negation. Somebody pinch me. But yeah, it's really cool to have a way to protect your plays in Archetype, and the ability to pump any of your monsters once per turn as needed, or pump an opponent's monster to punish them, is a great addition to the lineup, though they missed a key opportunity to give it a floating effect. Number 33, Chronomaly Machu Mech is a rank 5 Light Machine Xyz monster with 2400 attack and 1500 defense, requiring 2 level 5 monsters as material. It's based off the Incan city of Machu Picchu, and while it's not a floating city like Vimana is, Machu Picchu is built very, very high in the mountains, so it's kinda like flying. Once per turn, you can detach a material to target a face-up monster your opponent controls. You burn your opponent for damage equal to the difference between its original attack and its current attack, and if you do, Machu Mech gains attack equal to the damage inflicted permanently. Now, the yield of power from this effect is variable, but on the high end, it can achieve the Chronomaly OTK I've alluded to thus far. If you zero out a monster with 2800 or more attack, say with something like Chateau Huyuk, you can use Machu Mech to burn for 2800. This will leave your opponent at 5200 life points, and with the attack boost, Machu Mech will have 5200 attack points. At that point, all you have to do is swing through the zero attack monster to win the game. And this can be even lower if Huyuk is able to get in with their own 2000 attack points, in which case the target monster only needs to have 1800 attack. Or if your opponent has multiple monsters, you can level modulate Tuspa Rocket to give Machu an extra attack to leverage that damage. It's a viciously powerful combo that can end the game at a moment's notice, but now it freaks me the heck out because I just looked at its full art and this thing has a Terminator face. This city is alive and it's out for blood. Now it's time for the ace monster and invoked Magellanica's cousin, number 6 Chronomaly Atlantis, a rank 6 Light Machine Xyz monster with 2600 attack and 3000 defense, requiring 2 level 6 monsters as material, and they're based on, what else? The ancient city of Atlantis, a myth with a whole slurry of conspiracy theories behind it. When Xyz summoned, you can target a number monster in your grave and equip it to Atlantis, gaining half that monster's attack. And while we're not restricted to Chronomalies, if we only have them, our biggest is Machu Mech, which would boost Atlantis up to 3800. And once per turn, you can detach an Xyz material from this card, then send the monster equipped by this effect to the grave to have your opponent's life points, though you can't conduct your battle phase the turn you activate this effect. This is a pretty silly monster, I'm not gonna lie, but it gives you something to do if for some reason you can't commit to the battle phase. Though, if you're able to pull this off turn 1, starting your opponent off with 4000 life points is a quick way to put your opponent 6 feet under. But we've yet to tap into the true power of this monster. With the power of Chaos Xyz evolution, we can turn them into number C6 Chronomaly Chaos Atlantis, a rank 7 Light Machine Xyz monster with 3300 attack and defense, requiring 3 level 7 monsters as material. Once per turn, you can target a monster your opponent controls and equip it to Chaos Atlantis as an equipped card that gives it 1000 attack. And if it has Original Atlantis as material, it can attach 3 material and send all number monsters equipped to it by its own effect to the grave, minimum 1, to make your opponent's life points 100. Though if you activate either of these effects, your opponent takes no further damage that turn. This is, like, indulgently anime. Going through all the effort of summoning not just Atlantis, but its Chaos version at the point where your opponent has a number monster, or after you found a way to give them a number monster for you to absorb, and still not beating them is just asking for a last-minute reversal while the dramatic music plays. And you've already got an actual combo that wins you the game. You don't have to play this. I mean, if you want to, please go right ahead. Summoning this remixed version of Lava Golem looks fresh, but just make sure your expectations are in check, alright? Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna go online and order a few copies of these while not listening to my own advice. That's all the monsters, now it's time for the spells and traps. Chronomaly Technology is a normal spell that doesn't seem to have a specific reference, but is likely just meant to encapsulate the idea of all these cards being ancient extraterrestrial technology. You target a Chronomaly monster in your grave and banish it, then look at the top 2 cards of your deck. You add 1 to your hand, and send the other to the grave. It also locks you into only special summoning Chronomalies the turn you activate it. So you can peek at the top 2 cards and pick whichever one is best for you at the moment, and if the other card has grave synergy, then all the better. But it does mean you either have to build your deck to only have Chronomaly monsters, or you can't use any of your non-Chronomaly options. And if that technology is so advanced, why does it still have such a bogus restriction, huh? Chronomaly Pyramid Eye Tablet is a continuous spell that's likely based on the Emerald Tablet of Hermes, a hermetic text about alchemy that's also got a little Eye of Wajad on there for extra mysticism. While on the field, all Chronomaly monsters you control gain 800 attack. And it stacks, so the more you get, the more powerful they become. 800 isn't small time either. Anything with base 1000 stats becomes a viable attacker, and anything with 1500 or more is in a weight class with boss monsters, not to mention what happens once you start stacking them. But that's all it does, and as such won't see much play because doing things is more important than having a flat boost, despite how much of a boost it is. But because of that power, it's definitely worth keeping tabs lit on it. Chronomaly Temple Trillathon is another continuous spell that references trillathons, structures made of 2 vertical stones supporting a third one laid across them, which doesn't appear to be the case here. Trilithons are more associated with places like Stonehenge, but this looks like the Parthenon. If anyone knows why this discrepancy exists, please sound off in the comments, because I am wholly confused. While you control no monsters, or all monsters you control are Chronomalies, you can pay 500 life points, and immediately after the effect resolves, you normal summon a Chronomaly monster from your hand. And if a Chronomaly or number monster you control would activate an effect by detaching material, you can send a Trilithon to the grave instead of one of those material. Honestly, I'm super here for this. For all the free special summons the deck has access to, getting more normal summons means more material and more effects. Heck, since it's searchable by Nebrodisk, you can normal it, grab Trilithon, activate it, and get the extra normal summon train going from there. Moving forward, I see this card being a huge pillar of the strategy. Chronomaly City Babylon is a field spell that's based off the city of much biblical importance, Babylon, which is largely associated with the Tower of Babel. Though while researching, I found out that Babylon is an actual city that can be found in modern-day Iraq. Up until now, I thought it was made up for the sake of the story, which is just one of the reasons why I love doing episodes like this. Once per turn, you can banish a Chronomaly monster from your grave, then target a Chronomaly monster in your grave with the same level as the banished monster and special summon it. So here we have a revival spell that activates every turn, and I kinda love it, especially since we can use cards like Tuspa Rocket to set up the right levels. It's pretty useful, but doesn't have much depth to it, which is a real shame because if it had any more mechanical complexity, I'd be able to joke that I could babble on about it for a long time. Stonehenge Methods is a normal trap that's the first one not to be name-stamped as a Chronomaly card, and references, well, Stonehenge, a landmark of great significance to both the Maximals and Predacons in the seminal hit series Beast Wars. And less importantly, it's a prehistoric monument found in England whose methods of construction and purpose are still widely debated to this day. When any number of face-up Chronomaly monsters you control are destroyed by battle or card effect and sent to the grave, you can special summon a level 4 or lower Chronomaly monster from your deck in face-up defense position, and it cannot change its battle position. So it's basically Hero Signal for Chronomaly that was pretty bad, but with the inclusion of cards like Tuspa Rocket that get an effect when special summoned, and Magella Globe which you can convert into any other Chronomaly, it's a bit better. Not good or playable, but better. Though I guess we can always hold out for a new level 4 or lower Chronomaly that breaks the game with this card. That'd be unhinged. Our last card is Chronomaly Esperanza Glyph, a normal trap that's based on the Esperanza stone found in Mexico that had a large inscription on it that included symbols like the volute, which is largely associated with Greek and Roman pillar architecture, and a swastika. Important context, this was uncovered in 1909, so these are associated with their original religious affiliations with Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism, not the, unfortunately still alive scum of the earth, fascists. Not where I thought this video was going to go today, but it's always a good time to say fuck Nazis. You can activate it during any main phase by targeting an Xyz monster card you control or is in your grave. On resolution, you special summon 2 Chronomaly monsters that are 1 rank higher than the targeted monster's rank from your hand, deck, and or grave, but negate their effects. Then immediately after this effect resolves, Xyz summon a Chronomaly Xyz monster using only those 2 monsters. So it's like a weird rank up magic effect. You can set up whichever Xyz monster you want in grave by way of Tuspa Rocket, and then you get to make a free Vamana. And that's just the worst case scenario if you need to activate it to keep your board safe. If you can save it, it can become either Chateau Huyuk or Machu Mek all by itself, making your OTK even easier to get to. It doesn't mean that your victory is set in stone, but Glyph certainly helps. Okay, so that's all the Chronomaly cards, but what do we do with them? Well, if I haven't said it enough, we want to end the game on turn 2 by smashing our opponent over the head with one big attack, and we don't have time for anything that doesn't get us to that point or helps keep that combo safe. So what can we play to help them out? First, I think it's important to identify what cards we aren't going to play. Our theme is actually pretty good at not applying Chronomaly-only restrictions. Here's a list of cards that apply something like that, and thankfully we can cut most of them, especially if we're going for the OTK. Though if we want to go for Atlantis, we can bring back the Soul Monoliths. Nebrodisk only does so when summoning itself from the grave, so we can still benefit from the search. The only big roadblock is a Combro Figures, which is admittedly a pretty useful level 5 material, but does lock us into Chronomalies for the whole turn. We should still run it, but we'll need to keep it in mind for our combo lines. Thankfully, it's not necessary, just a big help if needed. A theme that might be a little fun to splash in is Adamantipator. True, half our main deck monsters are machines, but it is free summons if we can hit the rocks, and gives us tuners for a more varied extra deck. Or, alternatively, you could just play Doki Doki to trade any of your level 4 Earth rocks for a Tuspa Rocket. I can't believe these keep coming up, but Kaiju work out exceptionally here as well. Is your opponent sitting on a negation monster that's gonna mess up your combo? Swap it out for a big vanilla. And unlike most decks where you're encouraged to play things like Gameciel for its low attack, we're incentivized to play ones with as high attack as possible. In fact, even if your opponent's monster isn't a problem, it's just too weak for the OTK to get off the ground, just swap it out for a Dogoron and win on the spot. Twin Twisters is a cheap staple you can include to help clear back row. It's a pretty bland choice of a tech card, but with only Vamana being able to intercept interruptions, we need to make sure we take away as many chances as possible for our opponent to interact with us. Unfortunately, the other staple that's really good in this deck isn't very affordable: Forbidden Droplets. Okay, so it's good in just about every deck, that's why it's expensive. But not only is it negation, it cuts the stats of the affected monsters in half, which is really relevant for us. Even if we can't set up Huyuk Machumek, this still debuffs a ton of monsters, and with Tuspa Rocket's double attack, might actually make up for that. Because we've got number monsters, we can benefit from the very eclectic series of support cards they have access to. Number's Protection is an Omni-Negate that can recycle itself, and Number Wall gives them even more protection, including providing the anime effect where numbers can only be destroyed in battle by other number monsters. Glorious Numbers can also bring back a properly summoned Chateau or Machu Mech while giving it some material. As for a silly tech pick, well, if you want a way to make it land as turn 1, Tannhauser Gate is how you do it. You'll need it, the aforementioned Doki Doki, and a level 4 Earth Rock monster in hand. Normal summon Doki Doki Anthropology Club, using its effect to summon Tuspa Rocket. When it's summoned, send one of your number Chronomaly monsters from your extra deck to the grave. Any of them will do. Then play Tannhauser Gate. Both monsters have 1000 attack or less, so both of their levels become their combined levels, making them each 6. Overlay for Atlantis, equip the number you foolished with Rocket, then immediately activate its effect, having your opponent's life points. Then you can, I don't know, overlay Gaia Dragon on top of it later for some piercing damage? And that's all I've got to say on Chronomaly. If played to the best of its ability, it is kind of a one-trick, but it's been getting cards that help bolster that strategy over the last few months. With some practice and judicial application of your effects in combination with outside support, you'll be able to close out games your opponent would never suspect they'd lose, making them ancient history. But, you know, like the fake kind. But now, I want to hear what you all have to say. Do you think these antiquities hold the answers to victory, or are we gonna need to put in a bit more effort before we can forgery our way to a win? Let me know in the comments, and if you found this video to be helpful or fun, it would do me a world of good if you shared this video with someone you know who likes Yu-Gi-Oh! It really does a lot to help me out. I'd also like to let you all know that this will be my very last explained video of the year. I'm going to be taking next week off for Christmas and New Year's to give myself a bit of time to recharge so I can come back all the better next year. Thank you all so much for making this my best year on YouTube yet by far. Like, here's a list of things I'm happy about. I went independent, I started a whole new series, hit not just 1 but 2 major milestones, got to talk with a lot more of you, got to work with other content creators that I admire and respect. It's all been a huge, huge part of my life, and I couldn't have done it without you all. And a special, super amazing thank you goes out to all my lovely patrons who help make sure I can make Yugi tubing my full-time job. This month's illustrious Quasar Commander is Genesis Yu-Gi-Oh! The Nebula Navigators are Adam Zajdel, Benjamin Meisner, Blake Talbert, Eric, Gloomba331, Howling Zangetsu, John Manji, Maven, Panther J, Shooting Star 3300, The Wizard Moose and the Fresh Prince of Conair. The Cosmic Crusaders are Bear Sharktopus Studios, Chaz Ghost, Colin Todd, George Schaefer and the Legendary Raven, as well as the wonderful Starlight Explorers you see on screen now. And if you'd like to be a part of these credits as well as help me in my journey to cover all of Yu-Gi-Oh's archetypes, please check out my YouTube membership or Patreon links in the description to see if I have anything you'd like on offer. In fact, it's more important that I have your help with this now more than ever. If you've ever dabbled in how YouTube ad revenue works, you'll know that it spikes very nicely near the end of the year for holiday shopping ads, but absolutely tanks during the following months. If you have any extra money you could spare and find what I do fun and engaging, please consider supporting me through these next couple of months, especially if you want to see these videos early. However, I do want to emphasize that even if you're not able to do that, I do greatly appreciate that you're a part of my audience, watching the videos, liking, doing the commenting. All of that has given me the audience to get as far as I am right now, and I never want you to feel like I don't like you, or I feel like you're lesser of a fan because you're not able to do that. Anyway, that's my end of the year retrospective and Patreon plug. Thank you so much for bearing with it, and if you'd like to see another deck that just adores their Xyz monsters, check out this video I did on Boojins. And if you want to see two Yu-Gi tubers going at it, check out Noah Jenkinai's latest series, Progression Polls, where your voice shapes the format. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.